Welcome to another story of forgotten history that's noteworthy. The day was February 28th, 1844. The Potomac River glitters under a winter sun. On the water, a naval ship, the most technologically advanced vessel at that time, runs through the current carrying nearly 400 of the most powerful people in the United States. Champagne is flowing, a band is playing. Cabinet members laugh with senators, ladies dressed in silk look out over the gray water toward Mount Vernon. And somewhere below the deck, the 10th President of the United States raises a glass. He has no idea that in a matter of moments, several of the men standing just above the deck will be dead. And that he, by the thinnest possible thread of fate, will still be alive. To understand why February 28th matters, you first have to understand who John Tyler was. Because John Tyler was never supposed to be president. Not really. Born in Virginia on March 29th, 1790, Tyler came from a prominent slaveholding families. His father had been governor of Virginia. His upbringing was steeped in Southern doctrine of states' rights, a belief that would define and ultimately destroy his political career. He served in the U.S. House of Representatives as governor of Virginia and was a U.S. senator. He was a man with serious political pedigree. In 1840, he wasn't running for president. He was running for vice president as a regional afterthought on the Whig Party ticket designed to appeal to Southern voters who couldn't stomach either party. President William Henry Harrison was the real headline, and John Tyler was a footnote. Then on April 4th, 1841, just 31 days after taking the oath, Harrison died unexpectedly to pneumonia. And John Tyler, a man who had never expected to sit in Oval Office, was now the 10th President of the United States. Almost immediately, things went sideways. The Whig establishment, led by Senator Henry Clay, they assumed that Tyler would just do what he's told. They were wrong. Tyler vetoed Whig legislation to reestablish a national bank not once but twice. His entire cabinet resigned in protest. The Whig Party did something that had never been done in American politics at that time. They expelled a sitting president from his own party. They called him His Excellency. He had no party, no vice president, because there was no constitutional mechanism to appoint one, no real allies in Congress. He was a man governing from political island, surrounded by enemies on all sides. And then, as if it weren't enough trouble, someone invited him on a warship. Here's a question worth asking. What do you do when your political isolated president, desperate to prove that your administration means something? For John Tyler, that answer was simple: embrace the future. And in 1844, the future had a name, USS Princeton. The Princeton was a naval ship that was extraordinary. She was the first warship in American history powered by a screw propeller, with her engines mounted below the waterline, safe from enemy cannon fire. She was sleek, fast, and terrifying. John Ericsson was the Swedish-American genius who would later design the legendary ironclad Monitor. He had a hand in its creation. Her captain was Robert Stockton, a wealthy, well-connected Navy man from New Jersey who used his own family's fortune to help finance the project. Stockton was proud of the Princeton in a way that someone would be proud of building something from their own hands and money. Aboard the Princeton rode two massive cannons, the largest guns in United States history at that time. The first cannon was the Oregon, and the second cannon that would change history was called the Peacemaker. The Peacemaker was 12-inch, 27,000-pound iron cannon. The Captain Stockton had overseen its construction personally, and his reports were almost poetic about its power. He believed it was nearly indestructible. The gun's co-designer, John Ericsson, strongly disagreed. He had argued repeatedly that the Peacemaker had not been sufficiently tested and would not fire properly. But no one listened. On the morning of February 28th, the city's social elites stepped out, nearly 400 ladies and gentlemen in their finest attire, ready to celebrate. Among them, Secretary of State Abel Upshur, the man quietly negotiating a treaty that would bring Texas into the Union. Secretary of the Navy Thomas Walker Gilmer, and former first ladies, senators, and also journalists were included. David Gardner of New York, a wealthy man who had brought his two daughters along for the occasion, the younger daughter, Julia, who was only 23 at the time, she was remarkable, educated, and striking, and she had an interesting relationship with the President of the United States. Tyler, at that time a widower since 1842, his first wife died of a stroke in the White House, and so he had met Julia shortly after. He had been charmed and captivated by her, which led to him writing her poems, and he even proposed to her for marriage. She initially turned him down, but he was persistent. So as Princeton pushed off the dock, as the band struck up the Star-Spangled Banner, 3 cheers went up from the crowd. John Tyler was aboard that ship for more than political reasons. The cruise was festive, effortless, exhilarating. As the ship approached Alexandria, Captain Stockton fired the Peacemaker twice. The crowd cheered each time. The sound rolled across the Potomac River like thunder. Below the deck, champagne flowed. Toasts were raised and the band played on. Then came word from the upper deck. The gun would be fired one final time. Most of the guests surged up the stairs to the deck to watch. Secretary Upshur, Secretary Gilmer, Gardner, and dozens of others. Julia stayed below the deck, and John Tyler, whether it was by coincidence or fate, he stayed below too. Some accounts say that there was a favorite song that began to play. Another account suggests that he simply was lingering in Julia's company. Whatever the reason, John Tyler did not go above the deck. The order was given. The Peacemaker fired for the 3rd time, and then it didn't stop firing. The cannons breached at the rear, ruptured catastrophically. Superheated iron shards tore across the upper deck at blinding speed. The crowd, moments before laughing and toasting and celebrating, became a scene of terror, screaming, and chaos. In an instant, 6 people were dead. Secretary of State Abel Upshur, the man who was working on the annexation of Texas, was gone. Secretary of Navy Thomas Walker Gilmer was gone. David Gardner was gone. Beverly Keenan was gone. 2 others, including the presidential slave named Amistad, were also killed. 20 more were wounded, including Captain Stockton himself. The National News Publishing would later write that the scene on the deck was one that the imagination could not draw half of the damage that was done. Below the deck, the explosion was heard but not seen. A moment of terror, suspended confusion, and then screaming continued. Julia Gardner learned that her father was among the dead. She fainted. When Tyler reached her, he carried her off the ship himself. This may have been the most important step he had ever took. Moments earlier, he was headed above the deck, just one decision, one toast, one song away from sharing the same fate of his friends. The Princeton sailed back to Washington in silence. More than 60 carriages followed them through the streets. The Senate and the House postponed normal activities for their funerals. It was at that moment the worst peacetime disaster in American history. Until next time, see you in the next story.